Cracking people. It's your man, Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wing Man, representing high level technicians operating globally and beyond. So, listen, today I wanted to take a little time out to expand on a topic that I mentioned in a previous video, and that was the ugly, sexy player. Now, the ugly, sexy player is generally a term in my world for a dancer who has, his body game right, other aspects of his physicality on point, except for perhaps his face, right? He doesn't have that symmetrical model-esque type face that catalogs, magazines, and runway fashion houses look for. However, in my world, all of that is not necessary. And so I'm going to run down some aspects of why the ugly, sexy player makes his money tenfold in my world, when you would think that someone like that would be disregarded. And so the takeaway would be, in the real world, the outside world, the vanilla world, there's always opportunity for a man that falls into this category to clean up, so to speak. So we already know that he's not necessarily a face man. However, the attributes of an ugly, sexy player, or USP, is that his body game for his frame, keep in mind, for his particular frame, his body game has to be tight. Meaning that he regularly works out in the gym and he works with a body coach. He works on how to present his frame and move it through space and present it to women in such a way that they gravitate to his body's energy. His haircut has to be crisp. Those different aspects of what makes a man presentable, he has to make sure that those things are tight. Haircut has to be crisp. Fingernails need to be manicured. I repeat, they need to be manicured. There's no, in my world, there's no body hair. So all of those sort of cosmetic features need to be on point. He has to smell impeccable. When you are a USP, there's so many things that need to be, that most people take for granted, especially alpha showpieces. They can take stuff for granted, but the USP has to make sure that he focuses on those little details. It's all about the details when it comes to a USP. So his scent game has to be impeccable. He has to know who he is, and that means that of course he was probably teased growing up. Of course, before he knew who he was and embraced who he truly is, girls would stray away from him. Women would not give him any play, or at least any choosing signals. So a USP in my world, he has to know and embrace exactly who he is, own that shit, because he has to incorporate that into his routine and how he presents himself to women who he wants to tip him. So at the end of the day, he has to know what he came there to do and stick to it. This translates into the outside world in a manner of, if you're a USP who has that body game right, has those other points, in the bag, so to speak, you still need to know and go into an interaction when you approach a woman, what you're in there for, what your end goal is about. Because as long as you know the end from the beginning, all of those other twists and turns don't really matter. You're going to navigate that because you know what your goal is at the end of the day. So with the USP, he has to constantly be physically escalating and keeping it sensual. He has to be mission focused in this point, especially in my world, because it's challenging to keep the attention of women at a bachelorette party, or who have come to a male review, because there's so many options. There's so much man candy around, and so much competition that a USP needs to get to the point and make sure that he unlocks a woman and gets her to that area and to buy into his program. That's the most important thing that a USP can take away. He needs to get to the point and get the woman to buy into his program. A little caveat to that part is, an alpha showpiece can get away with a little bit more shit, but at the end of the day, the alpha showpiece is always with his head on a swivel, and he has to be aware when an ugly, sexy player is around, because the ugly, sexy player's charisma will allow him to take that piggy. I mean, he's coming for your piggy. And basically, for the outside world, what a piggy is a term for a big tipper in my world. Basically, it's short for piggy bank, okay? The more you know. So at the end of the day, there's more than enough action out here for any man who's willing to put in the work. My top recommendation for this is, if you feel that you may fall into the USP category, definitely get with a coach. This virtual space is exploding with great coaches who can assist you on your journey. I'm also, like I said, I'm also a certified personal trainer. And when I want to do something, if I got something coming up, I will myself get a personal trainer, right? Doctors go to see other doctors. I got a therapist in my rotation. She has her own therapist. Those are just best practices for, professions that when you want to continue to sharpen yourself and keep your skills sharp. And so, like I said, in this space, we've got style coaches. We've got game coaches. Get a body coach. And then once you've done that, come see me at the Hot House for that ultimate seduction factor. I'm going to leave the link to the Hot House below. So, as always, this is your man, Cousin T, a.k.a. the Alpha Wingman, saying, stay sharp but mission focused. Later.